My quick tagline that I've been telling people, it's giving Hollywood the Hollywood treatment.
I was very intimidated by this mid-Atlantic accent. Everyone's talking like this, and they all seem so fabulous.
That one time when you were playing an actress.
Right.
Playing an actress, playing an actress, playing an actress.
I was playing an actress.
I became obsessed with old Hollywood.
It ended up being a very moving experience to me.
It was my first time being on a Ryan Murphy set. There's definitely a very true and earnest kindness.
This is Entertainment Weekly's Around the Table. We are today talking about our new show, Hollywood, that will be on Netflix in a matter of days, if not weeks, depending on when you see this. But here we have the whole cast. My name is Darren Criss. I play Raymond Ainsley on the show, who is a young, aspiring director in the 1940s. Who else is here?
I'm David Corenswet. I play Jack, a young, aspiring actor on the show. Popcorn Jeremy.
Hey, what's up, everybody?
It's up there, man.
I'm Jeremy Pope. I play Archie Coleman, a aspiring screenwriter.
My name is Jim Parsons. I play real-life character Henry Wilson, maybe misunderstood, but certainly sleazy manager agent from the 1940s.
My name is Patti Lupone. And
You're looking great, babe.
Tony's. I can't. Is the audio weird, or is it just me?
It's just you, buddy.
It's just you.
It's just you.
I'm Patti Lupone, and I play Avis Amberg, and I'm the studio head's wife.
I'm Jake Picking. I play Rock Hudson.
I'm Laura Harrier, and I play Camille Washington, an aspiring actress.
Hello, my name is Samara Weaving, and I play Claire Wood. I play Patti Lupone's daughter, another aspiring actress.
Ace has a picture that we're very excited about. It's about fame and what Hollywood does to people.
This is our screenwriter, Archie Coleman. Pleasure to meet you.
You're colored. I love it.
Rolling!
If we change the way that movies are made,
Coffee, Miss Lala?
I think you can change the world. I want you to be the star.
Really? If you want something, you have to declare it.
I'll do anything.
I am not just a star. I am a star maker.
I mean, I got to do something on this show that I've always said I was going to do, but I never got to do. I think a lot of people who live in a city like LA don't do LA things unless they have, somebody visiting them or some kind of special occasion. So because we were shooting a Hollywood show, I had never actually sat at the bar at Musso and Frank's and had drinks. It just seemed like such a novel idea. So, because I drank fake martinis on the show there, and I'd very much like to have real teenies. But my drink of choice is scotch. So scotch at Musso and Frank's would be my vote.
My ideal drinking hole would be back in Australia at local pub, The Rose, having a good Bloody Mary. But I do remember the first time I came to LA, I had like $0 and I was staying in a very dodgy motel that I think, looping into this show, I think was a place for people to hook up and exchange some monies. But then a couple years ago, my friend said, oh, my dad opened up this place called San Vicente. And I went in and it was the same motel that I first ever came to LA in, but they had redone the whole thing. And it was kind of like a full circle kind of situation, if that makes sense. I'd gone there when I had nothing, and then I was going there for like fancy drinks in Hollywood and like looking at stars. So did I answer the question? I hope
That's
so.
a great story. That's a great story. I love that.
So for me, I would do a drive-by with my boy Jake Picking. We'd do some beach, chilling. And I went away to visit my girl Laura at the Sunset Tower. A couple shots, a little lemon drop, something like that. But then I would make my way to Patti Lupone's basement. I don't know if any of you have seen it, but she has a jukebox. She's got a pinball machine. She's got all types of things. That's where you want to end up. Patti Lupone's basement.
Thank you.
All right, everyone, roll cameras. Action!
This studio is risking everything. We're already seeing pushback.
So if I had to elevator pitch, it's like if you're standing in an elevator with somebody, you've got 30 seconds. How do you tell them, what the show's about and convince them to watch it?
My quick tagline that I've been telling people about the show is that we basically give Hollywood the Hollywood treatment. And, for all the sort of darker, unfortunate sides that the 1940s presented to the Hollywood industry and many industries at large in the United States and in the world, we kind of give it the 1940s happy ending, sort of joy upon joy. So like I said, that's my general thesis is it's giving Hollywood the Hollywood treatment.
Well, I like how Ryan called it faction.
Yeah.
The mixture of real characters and real situations, but how the changes that are being made now, what would happen if they were changed then. And in doing that, we're sort of honoring those people who paved the way for us to have a much better life in Hollywood. But it is eerily similar how much hasn't changed at the same time.
It's a fantasy. It's this idea of what if we had given queer people of color, women opportunities, had given them equal opportunities. How different could it look? How different could our industry look? How many opportunities and what am I trying to say? Just how things could have been different, how they the same, how they've changed. So we're asking, our audience to kind of go on this journey and this fantasy of what if they had been able to do this and that and love or make certain decisions, which I think is really cool and exciting.
And how far are they willing to go to? Just in terms of like their own artistry, how far are these actors and filmmakers really willing to go or to sacrifice as they really try to make it?
Let me guess. You came here to be a movie star.
How did you know?
Takes one to know one. I was in pictures, silent films, good ones too.
As far as research went for this, because I was one of the people that played somebody who was actually real, I got to read a fair amount about Henry Wilson, who I played, and Rock Hudson, because they were so well connected. It ended up being a very moving experience to me because, just to be specific for a second, Henry was somebody who was a gay man in that time. That's just one aspect of it, but it was nice to be able to have several little anecdotes that he had partaken in that gave a lot of color to how I felt about what we were doing. Jake, you seem a natural branch off of my topic since you're real too.
Just watching a lot of the Rock's old movies, Magnificent Obsession, Pillow Talk, and just all of his old interviews. I would watch the movies, not the interviews, on silent, just kind of study his body language and learned a lot about his family history, which probably was the most gratifying part about, being an actor in general is kind of, I don't know how everyone else feels, but maybe just living in someone else's pain for a while can be, kind of liberating. But I think, not to sound too down, but that was probably the most interesting part, learning about his family life. And, because this is the story about how, he came to be, who he was, and not at the height of his stardom.
When I met with Ryan, he told me that Avis was very, very loosely based on Irene Selznick, who was the daughter of Louis B. Mayer and married to David O. Selznick. And her book, Private View, is fantastic reading, you guys, if you want to pick up something about Hollywood. But it's very loosely based on it, but also I became obsessed with old Hollywood, having read that book. Every time we were someplace, you guys, I'm looking around for what is left. Mm-hmm. And we were shooting at Paramount one day, and the drivers took us from Paramount back to our studio, and I passed the Hollywood Dream Apartments. Mm-hmm. And just the idea of people's lives when I look at the old movies and I see the girls that are, sort of the tits and ass in the background, what was their life? Was their life what we've heard their life was? Mm-hmm. Or, was it legitimate? Or I mean, I'm still blown away.
I think we all had some pretty kind of jaw-dropping moments, like consistently on set. I know I share this with the guys, but anytime the women would come out in these beautiful period outfits. I had to I'd like pinch myself because it was just instantly transporting you back to this, beautiful time, and the clothes, and it changes the way you walk and the way you talk and the way you hold your cigarette and the way you light it and the way you put your glass down. And it sort of just dictates this entire oeuvre that is almost like it is this sort of fantasy world, even though it was a real time, that it wasn't too long ago and it was in this city. But
it's very romantic.
Yes,
exactly.
Sarah Evelyn did an amazing job.
Yes, yeah.
Extravagant.
Yeah, kudos to the costume department and the makeup and hair department.
Yeah.
Wow.
And our crew and our directors. I mean, we were fortunate. It was, and may I just say that it is so great to see you all. I have thought about you, and I have written since we wrapped to my friends. I miss my Hollywood family.
Yeah.
I miss.
Me too, you, Patty.
Miss you too,
guys.
This is Hollywood, kid.
I can make that dream of yours come true.
But it ain't gonna mean anything if this is what I do to get it.
We will not be bullied. This is just the beginning.
We aren't just making a movie. We're making history.
So the opening credits show the Hollywood sign and a few of the cast members literally climbing it, which is a pretty clear metaphor. Have any of you ever hiked or been up there? I have, but it's a really embarrassing story.
I haven't hiked up to it. I don't know if you can get all the way up there anymore. I think it's blocked off.
Yeah.
But
Besides us actually doing it on the day.
yeah, exactly. I don't know what I could say without ruining it, but I feel like I did climb it given what Camille does in the show. So it was like a lot of climbing Hollywood sign action, and I feel like I've been very close to it. But it did make me want to go up closer to the other. But then David and I, we had that night shoot where we were running around Griffith Park, and were we close to the Hollywood sign? We were over there.
Nah.
But it felt like we were running through the brush trying to get up to it in our minds. So that was fun.
Jeremy, you wanted to go have a shoot over there, right?
Yeah, I did. No, you had mentioned it to me. No, I mean, we had all talked about it. At least me and Jake had, about maybe venturing out and taking a hike up there.
And then
just to hang out.
Yeah.
Experience it. It never
we
happened.
Arrested. So.
Yeah.
There's some way you can get up behind it, right? And
Yeah, I was gonna say,
I've been behind behind it, and you can take a photo where kind of the Hollywood sign is below you a little bit.
You're telling me now?
I've done that.
Oh my God. Okay.
I've done it on TV. I'm good.
Yeah.
I did it in a protected environment where donuts were just a short stone's throw away.
Yeah.
I don't need to do it in real life.
So Jeremy made us those sweatshirts.
Oh yes, Dreamland.
Yeah.
This is Dreamland.
Gosh,
Patty, I made one for everyone, but we all wrapped at different times.
Yeah.
So I'll call the kids, the gang, the young ones. We wrapped like the late. I think Patty was running off to do a Broadway show. Jim was moving back to New York, and so I have yours whenever I get to see you next.
It's my favorite sweatshirt. Mine's in New York. Either way, I just wore a black sweatshirt in solidarity.
We appreciate you.
I know. I love that thing,
mine's
man.
in LA.
It's sitting in my closet.
So, Dick Samuels, I think he knows.
Knows what?
That I'm black.
He doesn't already know?
I never met anybody in person. I mailed in my script. He called me on the telephone. I told him, golly, Mr. Samuels, I'm just over the moon. You like my script.
You did not do that.
Golly, Mr. Samuels.
I did. Well, I hate to break it to you, Buster, but I'm pretty sure he's gonna find out pretty soon.
What I appreciate about Ryan is, at least my experience with him, is he really cared about my opinion and my vision for what I believe the character was supposed to be in the world we were supposed to live in. We met back in New York, and he kind of pitched me the idea of the show and told me very loosely what Hollywood was, who Archie was. One thing that I asked him was, I said, if we're talking about the 1940s and we're talking about Archie Coleman, who you're telling me is a black screenwriter, I was like, a black man would have to exist a little bit differently than I exist right now. And I said, and furthermore, are there going to be people on your side, on the creative side, in the writer's room directing me that represent me, that look like me. And he assured me that there was. And there was Janet Mock and Jessica, who directed our last finale episode. But I think overall, Ryan is a visionary. He is a content creator, a king of content. He has such a strong vision. I remember one moment we were on set, episode 1, he was directing, and it's kind of the intro to Archie, and me and David are having a conversation, or the character act, and he just wasn't happy with what it looked like visually. And we spent a couple of hours kind of shooting some shots, and then he just said he sent everyone home for a second, and we were kind of like, that's it? And he was like, yeah, I'm not happy with it, and it needs to be right. And we were kind of like, okay. So we all went back to our trailers and got undressed, and I took my clothes off and was making dinner plans, and then I have a PA running after me saying, wait, he wants to shoot.
Well, and that's the great flip side of his willingness to, if something isn't right and he sees it, he will send everybody home. He'll he's very committed to his vision, but at the same time, the way we ended up solving that particular problem, which was a thing about the set, the set didn't look. Kudos to the production designer and the builders and everybody. They built the most beautiful sets. In this case, it wasn't exactly what Ryan had envisioned or was hoping for, and he was having trouble shooting it. But the way he solved it was he brought me and Jeremy back in, after we had been shooting for an hour or two, and he brought just me and Jeremy back in and said, how do we solve this? This is my problem. I can't shoot this particular thing. I don't like how that looks, but everything else is great. How do we solve this? And then he, me and Jeremy and him worked out how we were going to kind of reblock the scene to accommodate it. So in addition to being very particular and very singularly focused about how things should look, he loves bringing people in to help solve problems and which is so much fun as an actor, so much better than being sent to your trailer and then not knowing, why this happened or why that happened.
I had such a Hollywood moment with Ryan Murphy in Hollywood. It was really bizarre. I got sent an audition that was untitled, unknown, and just sides from Some Like It Hot, and went into this room and auditioned, and I had no idea what I was auditioning for, and kind of went home and didn't really think about it because it was all very secret. And then I think a month later, my manager calls and goes, Ryan Murphy wants you on his show. And it was that audition. And then the next thing I know, I'm in his office talking to him. And it was a very, dreamland Hollywood experience. So
mine was kind of similar. Yeah. It was I had an audition for, I didn't know what it was, just said Old Hollywood. And it was some random size from an old movie. And I didn't hear anything for 4 months though, nothing. I completely, months. I think it was literally 4 months. I completely forgot about it. I didn't think that this was a thing. And then I had a call oh, you have a chemistry read with Darren Criss, and it's for Ryan Murphy's new show, and Ryan wants to meet you.
I thought they made a mistake. I was I think you need to call them back and just double check.
This is crazy. Yeah. So then Darren and I met and we read, and then I got a call the next morning from Ryan.
Do you remember how nervous I was? Because
you were more nervous than I was.
It was such a joke. This is so stupid. We had 3 actresses, and this is their day, and I'm trying to keep it cool, but I've never done. It's again back to Samara's thing. It's kind of a very Hollywood moment where I'd never done a chemistry read before. I'd never done that, so. Just that whole scenario, I felt really nervous for the girls, and I guess whatever nerves they might have had or not had just kind of manifested in my own body, and I felt so dumb.
I feel it kind of helped because you were so nervous, it made me less nervous, but you already had the part.
I'm glad. I felt like such an asshole because here I am telling an actress who is auditioning for the part of a thing that I already have.
You already had it. You were set.
I'm really nervous. Who is this?
So sweet. That is so sweet, Darren. That's so sweet.
It was very sweet. It made me feel much more comfortable, honestly, because it could have been very intimidating.
Yeah, all along.
Exactly. Because Ryan was just sitting there silently in the corner and just said hello, and then proceed or something like that. So okay.
Very Ryan.
He does have a flair for theatrics.
Well, it was my first time being on a Ryan Murphy set, and I think that there's definitely a very true and like earnest kindness, and it goes through the makeup trailer to everyone behind the cameras. Just I think carried itself over just from the first day to the very end. Being on a set like that was the prestige and everything was really incredible.
I will not live in fear.
These white people in charge, they don't play fair, so why should we?
It ain't about whether you win or lose. What's important is being in the room.
I was very intimidated by this mid-Atlantic accent because what I didn't realize is, so when we're watching these old movies and everyone's talking like this and they all seem so fabulous, I just thought that that's how people talked back then, I guess, because that's just how everyone's speaking in movies, but they didn't. They talked like us for the most part, and this was an actual accent that everybody had to go through and learn, and that was kind of the cool thing about all of these starlet classes that Samara and I were doing with in our scenes and in the studio system, that these women and men had to go and learn an accent perfectly, and it's the same as learning a British accent or an Australian accent or something. Like, they're very certain things to it. It's not just you can sort of say whatever you want and sound like an old movie star. So we had some dialect coaching for that. And then, I don't know, then once you have it down, it's really fun. It really kind of created the period and created the whole time of being in old Hollywood, because you just felt like you have this crazy wig on and the clothes and you're on this set and everything. It just really felt like we were transported back in time. So it was
also the way it was written helped. The language of what we were saying helped with the accent as well. And shout out to Liz Hammelstein, my dialect coach, because if I sounded like this, it would be a little bit off.
A little bit off.
Just a little bit.
Just a little bit.
There you go.
Thank you. You know what I always wondered about you guys when we're watching TCM, when growing up watching old movies, why the actors spoke with a British accent? Why did they speak? It's prevalent through the 30s and the 40s, and I don't know what Hollywood thought of American actors that we all had to sound like British actors, because it's not even. I mean, Mid-Atlantic.
It doesn't exist.
Isn't that a line? There's no place called the middle of the Atlantic. It doesn't make any sense.
But I was taught Middle-Atlantic at Mid-Atlantic at Juilliard.
Wow.
Edith Skinner, Mid-Atlantic. That was the speech they gave us. And exactly what was on the wall in that room that we all hung out in was what we had to do. But I'm talking about the British accents. I'm talking about more actors had British inflections back in the day. And I would, as a kid growing up, I'm going, why do they sound British? And even more so now, I'm going, what did the studio system think of American actors that they had to sound English?
I wonder if it was a status or a class thing.
I absolutely think it is.
That's what it was.
I also think it's an easy sort of blanket to give like people, because everybody sounds different depending where you're from in the country. And if you kind of give this blanket tone to make people sound distinguished, maybe that was just like a way to make, some bumpkin to sound, like he was in the Royal Shakespeare Company. I don't know.
Yeah, the other name for it other than Mid-Atlantic is American Standard. So I think it was a sort of a standardization.
That's correct, David.
David, you did it too. You did it at school too. Right.
Sam, because you're the only one that's from outside of this country. Did you, when you're learning an accent for, like, are you learning standard American? Or are you learning Midwest, California, New York? Like, which one do you even like have to put in your brain?
I'm pretty good at Generican right now.
Nice. I love that.
But then you have to remember that it's as if in the States, imagine growing up and all the shows and all the films you watch everyone has an Australian accent. So it was pretty easy if you have a good ear, because all I watched growing up was Americans on TV. So that accent was pretty easy to pick up. And then again, working with Liz Hammelstein, my dialect coach. But it is so much fun when I have a role that's from New York, or this one doing a Mid-Atlantic, and switching between the two when my character is a character within the character. She has a different accent from when she's not playing an actress.
Right, that one time when you were playing an actress.
Right.
Playing an actress, playing an actress, playing an actress.
Playing an actress. I think is the only difficult part is if there's any improvisation with an accent that I'm not totally comfortable with, then it gets a little tricky.
Jake, how does that work with your new teeth in the show? Did you find you were able to improvise around the new teeth?
No comment. Yeah, they were a little hard to get used to. I took them home and sang in the shower with them, so it seemed to work out.
I did think the teeth were a struggle.
Yeah, you had the teeth, Jim.
I had teeth too. We both did by a certain point. Yeah, that was interesting.
Is there any voice other? I mean, Rock obviously had his voice recorded, but did Henry have any? Is there any audio of him?
I
that
never
you got
heard
to
him. If there was, I couldn't find any.
Yeah,
that's a good question.
Which was a blessing.
You read for Ann Rogers last week. She's casting the Barbara Stanwyck picture at MGM.
Yeah. I wasn't sure it gone all that well.
It didn't. She said you were terrible. You know what my talent is? I know in the first 30 seconds if somebody's got what it takes to be a star. And you, believe it or not, you got it. You got picture potential.
If you could play any person from this era, who would it be and why? I think I'd have to stick with Rock Hudson, just because I think he was a hero in his own regard. I read somewhere that, it is, it's kind of it's not a secret unless it's painful to hold on to. And I felt like that's something that Rock had to do, which was so unfortunate, and that, it was tragic in itself. And I just wish he was alive today to see things change. But, yeah, I've always been enamored with that era. So what do you guys think? Who would you play?
I've auditioned for Marilyn about 5 times, and I was really excited because in one of the scenes in this show, I could kind of bring a little bit of Marilyn to it. So that was fun. But Ingrid Bergman would be great. Oh, she had such a story as well. There's so many amazing women from that time who were more than just a pretty face.
Yeah, I mean, I really based Camille off of Dorothy Dandridge, so I feel like a lot of Camille is an homage to her, so that'd be somebody that I'd love to play. But also, I guess from a little bit of an earlier era, Josephine Baker would be my dream to play.
Ooh, girl, I want to see you in the bananas.
I know, in the banana skirt.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, you bet. Well, you're the legs. I want to see you in those bananas.
Just for you, Patti. Yes.
That'll be in the basement. That'll be in Patty's basement.
Please.
Patti, who would you be?
Two. I would be Betty Davis and Barbara Stanwyck.
Nice.
I love them both so much. But Betty Davis is my hero. Betty Davis and Edith Piaf are the two people. Nobody can touch them. But
did Betty Davis do the canteen for the war efforts? Was that Betty Davis?
She might have. Yeah.
I think she started the canteen. I think it was Betty Davis.
Those are my two.
I would be, I'm going to go, jumping in. I would be, I would love to play and learn about James Baldwin. I think he was an incredible visionary. He was an incredible activist. He did amazing work. He went to Paris and he learned so much about the world. Or I learned a lot about Stephen Fetchit, who was considered kind of the first successful Black actor during our time period that we're playing in. And he was slightly controversial because people would say that he was blackfacing himself, that he was cooning himself. So you have like the Black people that weren't really a huge fan of this man, but he was also one of the most successful Black actors. So I think that
he
is
was really kind of in a group, I guess, then with Hattie McDaniels, because they were really controversial figures who were the most successful Black actors of that time, but they were playing, domestics or maids or slaves. And unfortunately, they were these incredible performers, but that was the only opportunities that were given to them then. I mean, until Lena Horne was put on contract, I think in 1946, she was the only one who was able to not play a maid. She was the first one ever. It's crazy. Wow. Yeah.
Popcorn Dylan.
Popcorn.
I used Scotty Bowers, was loosely based on my character. So if Scotty Bowers and Clark Gable would be
Matt.
So Clark Gable was my muse.
You make me laugh, Dylan.
So
got it.
Muse of Scotty Bowers, Clark Gable, and Superfly. If there was a threesome of Ernie West.
There are so many stories that we don't know about, and I think a lot of the composite characters that we kind of created for this show were sort of echoes or shadows of a lot of those people that that could have been or may very well have truly existed, but we just never really heard their story. So I don't know. I mean, there's you read books like Hollywood Babylon that are these very salacious sort of hearsay books that people, I think, nowadays like to take for scripture because it's fun and because it's sexy, even though, we weren't there. We like to believe these stories. Like, we don't like having the truth get in the way of a good story about this sort of fantastical time that we idolize. So I would really love to get to the bottom of other people who were in my sort of particular shoes, which were sort of white passing people that were biracial, and see, what cards they played, like if they just, if you looked like me back then, did you decide to be an Italian guy or a Hispanic guy because you could sort of pass for different races? And, at what point was that a compromise for them? If it really was, because, much like the black actors at the time that were getting work doing this sort of exaggerated stereotype of themselves, it poses a really interesting question, at what cost are you willing to succeed in, and what point is success more important than sort of, moving the sort of cultural dial? And it's a really very strange dichotomy. So I would love to try and investigate folks that may have been in that situation and see if there's anybody there that I'd bring to light. But otherwise, you guys are all very ambitious. I'd be so terrified to try and embody any of those people. So I would aim low and make sure that it's something that people aren't already familiar with.
Stop it. David?
I just watched Rear Window, and I would definitely want to play Grace Kelly. She's got everything. I'm a big fan of that other guy. Who's that other guy? Jimmy somebody. But boy, Grace Kelly steals that movie.
If anybody's watching this and doesn't know that David Corenswet was kidding about not knowing who Jimmy Stewart is, relax. It's a great movie.
Kim?
Well, David's kidding, but I really would pick somebody I would never get to play. I would. Katharine Hepburn was the first one that came to my mind. She was like, when I was young, she was one of the first things about old Hollywood that I knew about. She was still alive making pictures when I was young, like on Golden Pond and stuff. But and then as I got older, she became, and still exists for me, it's like this real symbol of the strength, somebody who did what they wanted to do, from what I could tell, exactly how she wanted to do it. And like that one specific story, I don't think it's apocryphal. I think it's mostly true, where she was kind of on the outs and Box Office Poison, and that's when she got the rights to the Philadelphia Story and put it on stage and turned into the movie, which became one of the most well-known movies ever made. And I don't know, she was a strong character, and I admire her. But I don't think I have the right structure to pull it off, which sucks.
Not with that attitude, Jim.
No, you're right. You're right. It's only attitude.
Prosthetics.
The Hollywood dream, that's everybody's dream.
This has been Entertainment Weekly's Socially Distant Around the Table. It's been really great to see you all. What else was I supposed to say?
Our show comes out.
We have the show that we made. It's called Hollywood, and it's out on Netflix May 1st, and it should be a great little escape in these times. It's fun and uplifting, and all these beautiful people are in it.